Welcome back to News Talk. For the third time this season, the Burgundy and Gold could not hold a second-half lead. Sunday, they fell to the Jets at the Meadowlands. Turnovers again the issue as the club falls to 2-4. Tom Threlkeld is editor-in-chief of the DC Pro Sports Report and joins us now. Always great having you here. Thanks very much for your time. I wish we had a win to talk about, as no doubt is true for the folks watching. I didn't realize, I was listening to the radio this morning on the way in, the sports junkies on 106.7 The Fan, talking about how Washington is 5-1 at halftime this year, but they've not been able to carry those halftime leads through the second half.
Outscored 46-3 in the third quarter this season, which is mind-boggling.
Wow.
And obviously the Skins coach Jay Gruden knew he would be asked about it in the post-game presser and gave the response which I expected, which was, I don't know why this is happening, and I don't think he does. But you know, it's almost like the team spends their halftime on a beer run, while the other team is getting themselves ready for the next 30 minutes.
Such a contrast to the Joe Gibbs era when the team was fabled for its ability to go in and on the fly basically come up with the game plan, make changes, etc., to tee up the second half.
Yeah, I don't know if Gibbs was one of the all-time great quarterbacks during the week, but on Sundays during the game, Gibbs became legendary, justly legendary, for in-game adjustments, for figuring out what the other team was doing well and exploiting what it wasn't doing well. And the Skins are not doing that right now. I don't know that it's all Jay Gruden's fault, but as a head coach, he's going to have to accept responsibility for it.
It's a big problem.
Yeah, they've got a lot of big problems. A lot of the focus was on the quarterback yesterday. Kirk Cousins threw 2 more interceptions, one of them really, really bad, a backbreaker, which blew up in a close game at the time. But the other issue, which is I think larger than that, is the fact that the team cannot run the ball. For the last month, they have really struggled to run. And yesterday, they gave up 222 yards rushing and only ran for 34 yards themselves. When you get outrushed by almost 200 yards in the NFL, almost invariably you will lose the game. And they were badly outrushed the week before against Atlanta.
And so much of the commentary leading up to the Jets game was that Alfred Morris was not performing at his 2014 level because he wasn't being given the number of carries that you need to get into the rhythm and flow of a game. I expected Morris, to get a ton of carries, to get a lot of work against the Jets, and to get into that rhythm that we've seen him develop.
Right. Well, this is 2 weeks in a row where Morris has averaged less than 2 yards a carry. Now, that's not all his fault. There have been some major problems on the offensive line, and it's really been along the entire offensive line, including the tight ends not blocking well enough. However, you know, when your running back is getting less than 2 yards a carry, some of the responsibility has to fall on the running back, and you can't just keep handing the ball off to Alfred Morris and expecting good things to happen when they're not happening. And this is the problem. Washington's offense is not built to thrive when it's in 3rd and 8. Very few offenses are. You really need a star quarterback for that. Washington needs to be in 3rd down and 2. 3rd down and 3. That means running the ball well on 1st and 2nd down, and that's what they're not doing. You saw that the first 2 weeks of the season. You haven't seen it since, and that's why they're struggling. This offense can't operate well on 3rd and long, and let me tell you something. This includes all their quarterbacks. They can lift Kirk Cousins and put someone else in, but the same problems will persist. They don't have a quarterback on this roster who can thrive in 3rd and long. They need, if Washington can't start running the ball effectively, they will continue to struggle on offense, and it doesn't matter who is behind center.
I've been surprised, and I suspect a lot of fans have been surprised by DeSean Jackson being out as long as he's been. I still don't know when he's likely to return. To the extent that he provides this ultimate deep threat potential, and defenses have to be respect what he brings in terms of stretching the defense. Is that having an impact on the running game?
Absolutely. When I go back and watch the games, it's really obvious, but you can see it in games as well if you know what to look for. Defenses are cheating their safeties up toward the line of scrimmage. If DeSean Jackson is in the game, almost no team is going to consistently just cover him with one guy. They're going to leave a safety deep because Jackson is one of the fastest human beings in the world. If he's not there, Washington really doesn't have someone who can consistently beat defenses deep. And this is the thing. You can criticize a team for not having more depth at wide receiver, but the fact is there are very few DeSean Jacksons in the world. And when you lose one, you generally can't replace them. and they have really struggled. He looked like he might play on Sunday. However, he tweaked his hamstring on Thursday, didn't feel right, and they kept him out. They don't want him to come back early and re-injure it and be gone for the season. I think there's a very good chance he'll play on Sunday against Tampa Bay. If he doesn't, then they go into a bye week, and he's certain to play in the first game after the bye week, which, unfortunately for the Skins, is against the New England Patriots.
Well, oh my gosh, I had forgotten that. With the pressure on Cousins and the pressure on Gruden now, the Tampa game looms large. I want to talk about that in a second. What other takeaways did you have, though, from the Jets game?
A terrific game from Bashaud Breeland, the second-year cornerback who forced 3 turnovers in the first half. 2 fumble recoveries, 1 he ripped out himself from Brandon Marshall's arms. Brandon Marshall's a big, strong guy that was very impressive, and a fantastic interception. And interception return, which set up the field goal, which gave the Washington the lead at halftime.
Talk about your circus catch, as Marv Albert would say.
That's right. That was a fantastic play. Breeland was very, very good there. And more good work from their kicker, who kicked a 54-yarder and looks like they've solved that problem. However, as I said, they don't run the ball well, and they don't stop the run. And this is a real problem. The last 2 weeks, they have been absolutely gashed. For the first month of the season, they stopped the run. For the last 2 weeks, they have been destroyed by Devonta Freeman of Atlanta and Chris Ivory of the Jets. And there are some real issues there. They are bouncing outside on Washington, getting away from their defensive linemen. And some of the linebackers really need to do a much better job of getting off their blocks. I thought Ryan Kerrigan had a very poor game yesterday, and he's being paid too much for that. That cannot continue. Washington really only has a chance to win games when it stops the run and runs the ball well. And if it doesn't do those things, it's really going to struggle. It's going to scrap and struggle to win any kind of game. And they're not doing those 2 things right now, and they have to get back to those. And those are the issues, no matter who the quarterback is.
How do they stack up against Tampa, do you think?
Tampa is not a good team. They are also 2-4. They have a rookie quarterback who throws a lot of interceptions, and sort of like Kirk Cousins. And this is a team they should have beat last year, and they got beaten badly by Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay was the worst team in the league last year. They had the first overall pick in the draft, which they used to take Jameis Winston, their quarterback. Washington should win this game, I would think, particularly if they get back some of these players that were healthy. The Skins were absolutely devastated by injuries this past week. That's not an excuse, but it's a fact. I mean, they were missing some of their best players, a good chunk of the salary cap. If they can get Deshaun Jackson back this week, if they can get Trent Williams, who's their best player, the left tackle, back this week, if they can get Corey Lichtensteiger, the center, if they can get one or both of their cornerbacks, Chris Culliver and D'Angelo Hall, both starting cornerbacks now. I mean, it's a long, long list. Matt Jones, the running back, if they can get him back. A healthy Washington team should beat Tampa Bay, and they would go into a bye at 3-4. Now, after last year's 4-12 season, going into a bye at 3-4 would be acceptable, you'd think, especially since they play New England after that. If you don't beat Tampa Bay, then you face New England afterwards. You're probably 2-6, and all hell breaks loose, if you'll pardon my language. I mean, that's why Jay Gruden said after the game that the Tampa game is code red. It's a must-win.
Amplify on that, because we've seen at the college level and the pro level, coaches get bounced immediately after the game.
Going into bye weeks. That's what happened to Miami and the Miami Dolphins just earlier this season. I
guess because the 2 week
gives you more time to prepare.
Gives you more time to prepare. Not predicting that, but there is talk at the edges. So what's the pressure level here?
It's huge. I mean, look, here's the thing. Gruden stood on the table for Kirk Cousins and said this is his team. And he again said yesterday, this is his team and we're sticking with him. If Cousins fails, Gruden goes with him, right? I don't see a route where Gruden stays and Cousins fails. And we have to remember, the general manager of this team, Scott McLuhan, did not hire Jay Gruden. Gruden was hired by Bruce Allen and Dan Snyder before McLuhan got here. McLuhan has no ties to Gruden, no loyalty to him, and generally general managers like to choose their own coaches. So if Gruden gives McLuhan an excuse to fire him, he probably will.
Best case scenario, they rebound, they show some of the, they get healthy, they rebound, they show some of the form they've shown earlier in the year. Worst case scenario, it's not just a loss, but a bad loss. In the 30 seconds we have, what are the odds that in that scenario, Gruden doesn't return after the bye?
I think there's at least a 25% chance he could be fired. There are some people on the roster, on the coaching roster who could take over, particularly Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach, who's been a head coach at the pro. He took the Raiders to the Super Bowl, and he was a head coach in college as well. That could happen.
More of our conversation with Tom Threlkeld after the break. For those of you watching After Dark, head over to our blog for our discussion about sports gambling. You'll find it at news8newstalk.com.